take me through what happened. Did she have COVID and was taken to the hospital, or what happened that day?
We had tested Grace for COVID, and she was tested positive on October 1st at home. We really didn't think anything of it because we were following the frontline doctor's protocol to a T. What happened is day 8 or 9, somewhere in there, she couldn't maintain her oxygen above 90% saturation. They said, we want to admit Grace to the hospital. I said, well, then I'll be staying with her. And they said, well, you can't. I said, well, what do you mean I can't? And they said, well, our hospital protocol doesn't allow you to stay in the room. I said, well, then I'll be taking Grace home. And unfortunately, they came back. I say unfortunately because Grace died, but unfortunately, they came back 2 hours later and said, well, we decided you can stay as long as you don't leave the room. And so I said, well, that's of course fine. I mean, I'm not going anywhere, with the full expectation I was going to catch COVID from Grace. That evening, so this was the evening of October 7th, we had a little bit of an issue in that Grace was starting to get frustrated with the high flow nasal cannula. They put this cannula on her that was shooting air up her nostrils at a high rate of pressure, and she didn't want that. So then I worked with the nurses and the respiratory therapists on getting a BiPAP map to fix that problem. And ultimately it took about 3.5 hours on and off, and we finally got it situated. So the morning of October 8th, a doctor came in at 8 o'clock and said, your daughter is going to need to be on a ventilator in the next 2 hours. And I said, what is that based on? And he said, it's based on the blood gas numbers that they drew the night before. I said, what time did you draw them? He said 11:30. So we just got done wrestling with Grace on and off for 3.5, 4 hours. I said, I don't think those numbers are accurate. Her blood pressure was 235 over 135. Her heart rate was 150 beats per minute. I said that you guys took it at the worst possible times. I said, I'd like to have those numbers taken again. And so they took them at my request, and she was, of course, fine. So we dodged the ventilator bullet. The next day, October 9th, was another fairly significant event. Grace was great. She got up. She was pretty hungry, didn't eat much the day before. And so I ordered food, started feeding her, and the nurse came running in and said, you can't do that. I said, well, what's the reason? And she said, well, because Grace's oxygen saturation is only at 85%. Remember, I told you I had my oxygen saturation meter, so I put it on her finger and it read 95%. So I called the nurse in. I said, is my meter accurate? She said, yes. I said, well, why is my $50 meter more accurate than your $50,000 meter? And she said, well, the leads get sweaty. And so these type of things happen. I said,
Wow.
you got to be kidding me. I said, if you know that, why don't you just trade these leads out every 4 hours or whatever it takes so that you have an accurate reading? This is the single most important statistic that you are using to manage my daughter's care. And she snottily responded, you should just be thankful you caught this. She's on 1.4 units of Precedex. They give her 2 doses of lorazepam 3 minutes apart. I mean, it had to be a mistake, I'm guessing. I don't know. Then at 6:15, they give her 2 milligrams of morphine as a IV push, which means they gave it to her instantly, not as a drip. The morphine package insert is so condemning to what they did. It says to not do this specifically. Don't combine it with Precedex or lorazepam because it causes death. Jessica's in the room as the advocate. At 7:20, she calls us panicking because Grace's numbers are just dropping. And so my wife and I are, on FaceTime saying, get the nurses in. She said, Dad, I can't get them in. They won't come in. So now we're hollering, save our daughter. And they holler back, she's DNR, do not resuscitate. That's the first we, that's the first we know
This is
she's
sick.
DNR.
This is so sick.
So, ultimately 7 minutes go by. We watched Grace die on FaceTime at 7:27 that evening.